They're going to be the views of Rosa Corey, and we're going to be talking about Agenda 21 and what's really going on in the world. Rosa, thank you very much for being with us this evening.
Great to be here.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in working to try to expose what's going on?
Well, I unknowingly fell into what I call the snake pit of Agenda 21, sustainable development, and humanitarianism while I was fighting a huge redevelopment project here about 1 hour north of San Francisco. I had bought some property, some investment property in an area, and wasn't told, because it is not a disclosure issue, that this was an area that was declared blighted, a redevelopment area. And what I didn't know at the time is that redevelopment is a major funding source for Agenda 21. Agenda 21 is mandated and implemented as a land use program.
Well, could you explain to our listeners, if they don't know what Agenda 21, what is Agenda 21? And then we get back to, of course, your experience, but what is Agenda 21?
Oh, great. Well, Agenda 21 sounds like some kind of science fiction thing or something, but it was implemented or designed as a policy by the United Nations, and in 1992 it was adopted by 179 nations, including the United States. It was signed on to by George H.W. Bush, and President Clinton created the President's Council on Sustainable Development. So, Agenda 21 Sustainable Development basically says that the affluence of Americans is a major world problem that has to be corrected. And the way that it should be corrected conceptually is by lowering the standard of living of citizens in the United States, restricting their freedoms, restricting their energy use, their water use, their personal mobility, their transportation, their food production, and production of anything that you might make in a factory. And our freedoms and liberties are restricted by Agenda 21.
And because that's really, I believe, why they simply cut off the water there in the Central Valley. We have to protect this tree and smelt. No, they wanted to destroy the agricultural base of the Central Valley. They've done a great job. We've got 12.6% unemployment in California, direct result of this Agenda 21 policy of destroying our agricultural base, or a large part of it. So you go right ahead.
Well, it's absolutely right. And these things, if you just stand back and you look at it, you say, well, this makes no sense. Why would they want to destroy the entire economy of the United States? Why would they want to restrict our food production and our ability to make a living, to create our lives? But when you think of this mandate from the United Nations, which was signed on to by the U.S. and is being implemented through state, federal, and local levels, and that's what I'd like to talk about, we realize that the actual the project is about restricting us and restricting our ability to be independent. It's creating more dependence in the United States and limiting value of our land and our lifestyle.
And basically, you tell this to the average person, they look at you as if, well, you must be wearing an aluminum cap, all the time. Who would believe anybody would really want to lower the standard of living in America? And yet the standard of living is going down. Unemployment is rising. Our manufacturing base is being effectively destroyed.
That's absolutely right. That's what we're seeing here, and we struggle with this. And one of the ways of implementing Agenda 21, and this is not something that you and I are just making up. This is very easily documented by going to my website and, of course, yours and many others, including the United Nations. You can see that one of the ways that Agenda 21 is implemented locally is through redevelopment projects. And redevelopment projects, people don't recognize or realize that they're funded by our own money, by our property taxes. Our local property taxes go to, instead of paying for our police and fire, our parks, our roads, pensions for our city officials or into our general fund, these funds are diverted into a redevelopment agency that has the power of eminent domain and can take your property against your will and give it to a private developer to develop smart growth.
All right, and so is this what happened as far as your property was concerned? Did they actually take your property or condemn it, or what happened?
No, what happened was my property was in the project area. It was an 1,100-acre project area, and I was elected to the the Citizens Advisory Committee as an oversight person, and I was elected because I'm a commercial real estate appraiser with 30 years of experience in eminent domain valuation. I'm an expert in eminent domain valuation, and my specialty is in forensic valuation. I testify and work in litigation. So I was elected by the citizens to represent, want to be a business representative on this committee. And when I got onto the committee, I began to realize that actually the city had fraudulently created this project area and that they did not have a standing to do so. And eventually I ended up suing to stop the project along with my partner. We started a business association. We hired a law firm. We started we started a nonprofit so that we could get enough funds to sue, and we raised donations and pro bono by the law firm of $500,000, and we sued to stop this redevelopment project. We did lose at the Superior Court level, and then we took it up to the appellate level where we lost again. But we were able to stop eminent domain and stop this redevelopment project for 3 years. And during that time, the economy tanked, and we stopped all of the projects that they had planned to do.
Well, maybe there's a good side of what's going on today. We don't have the money to work against us. We'll be right back. Well, this is Dr. Stan, and of course, our guest is Rosa Corey, and she's telling about what happened in the redevelopment program in her area. Now, basically, this is all part of the Agenda 21 program, a matter of taking away property through eminent domain. And, of course, when Rosa was appointed, elected by the people in this area to the redevelopment board, she saw what was going on. They eventually raised enough money to bring lawsuits against the community that was trying to develop this and take away people's property. Suddenly they take away your property, they give it to one of their friends who's a developer, and he makes a lot of money on these development projects. Some people just come out just smelling like roses. Well, they lost the case, and then they took it to a higher court, and they lost the case there, but they delayed the whole thing for 3 years. And then, of course, fortunately, the economy tanked, and they ran out of money to do that. And, of course, now we hear that Governor Brown is going to take all the money away from these redevelopment projects and suddenly strip it from the redevelopment projects, and whether he's going to give it to communities, what he's going to do with it. But he's really going to put a stop to a lot of this because it's being used to really, of course, to pursue a different agenda, an agenda most people don't even understand. It's called Agenda 21, the agenda for the 21st century. Go right ahead, Rosa.
Well, that was a great summation, and definitely if you stop redevelopment, it's at the evil heart of much of what Agenda 21 is, of what the land use and local funding plan is, redevelopment for Agenda 21. And if you drive a stake through redevelopment, you're going to strike a huge blow against Agenda 21. And that's what we want to do. We want to stop Agenda 21 locally, where we can recognize it, where we can see who is pushing it on the community, where we go to these visioning meetings and we're being told that we can imagine whatever it is that we want to imagine in our center cities, and those properties and projects and property owners who have businesses there now will just be swept away by redevelopment, and they can impose anything that they want there with their favorite developers. And if Jerry Brown is able to stop the huge and powerful redevelopment lobby in California, that will be an incredible blow against Agenda 21.
Well, it's going to be very interesting. See what's going to happen this next year or two. I think we're going to be living through cataclysmic changes in the structure of our society. For better or for worse. But anyway, under any circumstances, I think that the ready availability of funds has allowed, of course, these redevelopment projects to go in. And, of course, many times in San Diego, for instance, they want to take $1 billion and build a football stadium for a multi-billion-dollar football team owner. But if it's a good deal, why doesn't he build it himself? Well, why should he build it when he can get redevelopment money? And this is the sort of the way the system really works. And their favorite people they'll do all, if you pay the right people off. And I hate to say it, but we have a corrupt society. And basically, they always in the name of, oh my goodness, we want to make a better society for everybody. But it's amazing how many people make a great deal of money helping the common people.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's that's what they say anyway. But this is a nationwide issue. I guarantee you that there isn't a city in this nation, not a county in this nation, that doesn't have a redevelopment area. And as we all recall, in 2005, the Kelo decision, the Supreme Court decision, was determined that cities didn't even have to bother to find blight, that they could actually take your property and give it or sell it for a pittance to another company, a business, a development firm that had a vision, an idea of what to do on your property that would make more money for the city than whatever it was that you were doing there. And this is Agenda 21. This is smart growth. People know it by the name of sustainable development, smart growth, high-density urban development. This is the way that they are funding these high condos, these high multi-story condos with ground floor residential. This is the plan, to move us into the inner cities and off of our rural lands and out of the communities that we have created into these sort of Disneylandia areas where we can be watched and monitored and controlled.
I couldn't have said that better. And ladies, have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, these are called sustainable communities. They're high-rise apartment buildings, and of course, then you can work on the first floor. Your business can be on the first floor. You can shop on the street level, and then you won't have to have a car, so you won't have to have, usually they build these next to a rail line so that you can use rail traffic, and then of course there are going to be bicycle racks there, and you'll be able to have access to bicycles, and there's not going to be any garages, so you can't have a car, but won't it be wonderful, because then you can go walking and you go bicycling, and because there is an elite that really thinks this is the way we should live. And they have so many other programs having to do with our use of water. We use too much water, we're running out of water. If we use too much electricity, we're running out of electricity. And they want to regulate every aspect of our lives. And as you got into this, if you, like most people, when you first found out about it, it's almost like Disneyland. I mean, this couldn't really be real.
Well, because I am a commercial appraiser and because I do litigation work, I knew that there was a planning revolution going on. And I appraised property in all 9 counties of the San Francisco Bay Area. And everywhere I went, the same thing was happening. Only certain developers were able to build anything. Only certain building types were being built. Suddenly, it was very difficult to say what anyone could be doing with their property that they owned, that had been zoned, that they purchased with the expectation that they could develop it. And suddenly, they were restricted in what they could do. There were land use plans. There were regulations. There were corridors, there were conservation easements, there were all sorts of restrictions on water and development use. And suddenly you find that people's property has, when you have the expectation that you can do something with a property, you can get a loan on it, you can put a business on it. But suddenly if you're under redevelopment and you're being told that the redevelopment agency has the power of eminent domain over your property for 12 years, and can take you and give your building to another person. You cannot plan. You can't get a loan. You can't have an expectation of what you can do. And this is an Agenda 21 social engineering plan. This is visioning. People are being manipulated. They are being used. There's a way that they're doing it through the Delphi technique, where they actually manufacture consensus, and they take people and they manufacture consensus, and they make you think that this is a plan that you have come up with for your own community, and in fact, it is being imposed upon you from beyond your community.
And I'm sure you've been to these meetings. They call them, visioning meetings, but there's a facilitator there. He is brought in specifically to convince you of something you don't want to believe, and they actually train these facilitators how you do mass psychology, and they have people planted in the audience to go along with that. And the one thing, of course, they fear is there's somebody there who understands what's going on and will object. Well, we're not going to take a vote. We're just going to break up into little groups. We're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about it, and then we're going to take all of your ideas, and then we're going to come up with a consensus, and that will be the official policy. But this is all designed to come up with a preconceived decision. They're not interested in what you think, although they pretend to be. I'm sure you've been to these meetings.
Absolutely.
They're so carefully staged, and the average person going doesn't understand that his mind is being conditioned.
Well, you get a sense of it because they never allow dissent. And so you get that feeling. You have that uneasy feeling that maybe you're the only one in the room that doesn't like the plan. And this was developed, this consensus building, or the Delphi technique was developed by the Rand Corporation in the 1960s. And they used it in the 1970s and 80s to get people to accept the concept of general plans. And I could go into that. It's all on my website. I'd love for people to take a look at. I have two websites.
Well, why don't you go ahead and put that place out, and we'll give you a chance in the second half hour.
Okay,
so
great.
Go ahead, but you get your website out right now.
Okay, I have two websites. One is a local on-the-ground, boots-on-the-ground group, and that is it's called it's www.santarosaneighborhoodcoalition.com. And the other one is the national group talking about Agenda 21, and that is Democrats Against UN Agenda 21.com.
And I think it's very important. One more time. Why don't you repeat that, because it's hard for people to get it down the first time. One more time, both of your websites, please.
Okay, great. The Boots on the Ground website is Santa Rosa Neighborhood Coalition.com. And the site, I'm getting thousands of hits from all over the world on the Democrats Against UN Agenda 21.com.
And I think more and more people are learning about Agenda 21 because, of course, of your efforts and my good friend Michael Shaw and other people who are talking about this today. And it is a worldwide movement. It's not simply an American movement. It's a worldwide movement. It is a United Nations policy. We actually provide people with the UN Agenda 21 policy. Actually, of course, the original Agenda 21 was pioneered right where I live in Santa Cruz. And this is, we call it the People's Republic, and of course they did a lot of experiments. They did the initial trial balloon on Medicare and Medicaid right here in our community because we're sort of isolated, and then of course they did the trial balloon on Agenda 21. We even have the Santa Cruz Agenda 21, which came out before the UN Agenda 21, and it's fascinating as you begin to understand. They want to get you out of your car. What's all this about electric cars now and green energy, and it costs 3 times as much? What's this all about? Well, you certainly need to get the Agenda 21. You'll find it's all part of the plan. We'll be right back, and give us a call if you have a question. Well, you go right ahead, Rose, and I'm sure you're well aware of how this ties into everything that's happening as far as the carbon footprint and the idea we're going to have to cut back on our utilization of electricity because we're going to destroy the planet by anything we do in the way of use of electricity. We can't have atomic energy, we can't nuclear energy, we can't have hydroelectric energy. We've got to tear out the dams. Certainly, we can't have natural gas electricity because that increases our carbon footprint, and so we're just going to have to cut back on our use of electricity.
Well, in this town and in many towns, they want to see us go back to pre-1985 levels of energy use. And in fact, that's part of the movement behind getting people out of their cars and onto bicycles. This is a land use plan. They're developing buildings that have no parking or very little parking. So you're dependent on just the route that your train, if you've got one, or your bus goes. And if you have a bicycle, one thing to know about bicycles and bicycle coalitions is they are very powerful advocacy groups now. Bicycle coalitions are tremendously powerful advocacy groups for redevelopment. They are the shock troops for complete streets, for the Thunderhead Alliance. They move people into positions of power in your local government, and they are talking about restricting movement because they even say that if all vehicles were electric, it still would not bring us down to a low enough level of energy usage. And they actually, I had someone else I was working with on this issue, said, we could end up being sitting in huts and eating cold grubs, and it would still not be enough because the plan is actually to drop our population, restrict our movement, our mobility, and our privacy, our personal mobility, our ability to be free, and to actually completely change our way of living through communitarianism.
And that sounds so incredible. I'm not challenging what you're saying. It's absolutely true, and certainly we've read their publications. We know what they're planning. And yet it is, to the average individual, they say, well, that doesn't make sense. No one in their right mind would want to do that, would they?
Well, I don't know. The Chinese like it pretty well. And I think one thing we're seeing here, if you're actually fighting this on the ground, as I am, and as people who are working with me are, as many of us are, you're going to see that your neighborhood associations, these people who are closest to you in your community, have actually been, can I say, infiltrated by people who are trained facilitators, by people who are lobbyists, people who seem to you to just be like you, but instead are actually being paid to manipulate you and to condition you. They're secretive, they are lobbyists, they're fanatical, they use the Delphi technique. It's not a left-right issue. This is un-American. We are exposing them and their programs. They are using asset-based community development. They're using neighborhood associations. They're using COPS, which is the community-oriented policing program. They're using green building retrofit programs where they're actually proposing to go into people's homes as a mandate, go into their homes and businesses and inspect every inch of their buildings from the attic to the basement.
Hold that thought. Well, this is Dr. Stan, and certainly our guest is Rose Corey. Our telephone number is 1-888-24-LIBERTY. 1-888-24-LIBERTY. And Rose is simply pointing out that they want to get us out of our cars. In fact, they want to get us out of our homes. In fact, even if we were living in huts, that wouldn't really have, and eating gruel, that would not make them happy. They want to lower the living standards. And you say, well, who in their right mind would want to do that sort of thing? It doesn't make any sense. And my comment is always, well, of course, but you have to understand, we're not dealing with people in their right mind. These people have a different view of the world. They believe there are too many people. They hate civilization. They think we'd be far better off if we were back where we were when the deer and the antelope roamed the ranges and before the wicked white man came. And you say, who would want to do that? Well, there are people in positions of power, and I believe this is a subversive element. They want to destroy this nation, and they're doing an excellent job of it. And the average individual doesn't understand that Agenda 21 is the master plan that is being implemented, was never voted upon by members of Congress. But it doesn't matter what our elected representatives want. They're really irrelevant. Certainly George Herbert Walker Bush went right along with this there at the Second Earth Summit meeting in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. Bill Clinton picked it up. But George W. Bush is certainly enforcing it. Barack Obama is enforcing it. And Agenda 21 is the agenda for America. It's all this talk about green energy. It's all the talk about, getting your car. And then, of course, you're going to be able to charge it from midnight to 6 o'clock in the morning. And because that's when the electricity is going to be cheaper. Because if you use the electricity during the major part of the day, it'll cost you 3 or 4 times as much. But then, of course, you're not going to be able to go very far in your electric car. And once you get in a sustainable community, you won't even need a car because there won't be any garages. And they really have these. They've got these sustainable communities over in San Jose. They have the plans to take about a third or a quarter of the city of San Jose and turn it into sustainable communities. The average individual over there doesn't understand, but the elected leaders do, and they're part of the whole program. Our telephone number is 1-888-24-LIBERTY. 1-888-24-LIBERTY or 464-8295, and I'm sure you're well aware of what they're up to, aren't you, Rosa?
Oh, I sure am. And it's a great thing that you mentioned electricity, because those smart meters can be shut off remotely, just like a lot of your vehicles. I think there are about 30 different models of different vehicles that can actually be shut off, and this is for your own good, just in case someone steals it, right? But it can be shut off from Sacramento. And so your smart meter can be shut off remotely, and you can't turn that back on. So now, for people who think that, I sound a little crazy, and I'll tell you, sometimes I wish that I was. I wish that I was making this up.
I wish you were, too, but it's really the reality of what's really going on. Such a pleasure.
It's terrible, You just say, darn it, why is this really happening? And it sure is. And I just want to say, I did mention that I am a forensic appraiser. I testify, and if I can't prove it, I don't say it. So everything I'm talking about, I have the proof for, and it's easily found. This information is well out there. And the people who are implementing it are your school board, your neighborhood association, your town council. Here in Sonoma County, Valerie Brown, who is the chairwoman of the Board of Supervisors here in Sonoma County, is, guess what, on the national board of ICLEI, which is the International Council of Local Environmental Initiatives, which is the local implementation arm across the nation. They and across actually the world. They are an international group that designs land use plans for different municipalities, and Valerie Brown is the chair of our Board of Supervisors and also on the national board. Now, she's fighting. You brought up Jerry Brown, our new governor, who wants to stop redevelopment and reapportion those funds. Valerie Brown is fighting him on that. Now, she should be jumping up and down with joy, because a lot of that money will go to counties. It'll be taken away from cities and go to counties where it should go. But she's against it because she's on the national board of ICLEI. Who is she serving? Is she serving the people of the county, or is she serving someone else?
And I think this is what people have to understand. This is a subversive movement. Basically, the communities sign a contract with this international organization that's against the basic tenets of the Constitution. But the average individual in a community, even many people on the board of supervisors or city councils, really don't understand what it's all about. It sounds so warm and fuzzy and helping and coordinating local environmental initiatives, and who could be against clean air and who could be against a better world. But this is really, the name of the game is control, ladies and gentlemen. This is a subversive movement. We'll be back in just a moment here at Radio Liberty.
While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair, as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountain to the prairie to the ocean, white with gold. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountain to the prairie to the ocean.
Bye, Daddy.
Bye, Dad. Don't be late.
No?
White with gold. God bless America, my home sweet
Right, Pop? Right, son.
God bless America, land that I love. Beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountain to the prairie to the ocean, white with gold. God bless America.
Well, this is Dr. Stan back here at Radio Liberty. Our guest is Rosa Corey, and she's up in the Santa Rosa area, and she is up there trying to get people to understand what Agenda 21 is, how this fits into redevelopment, what this whole idea of smart motors, smart meters, and smart grids and smart appliances, and certainly what this whole idea of sustainable communities is all about. And certainly she's really has an excellent grasp of this. This program was actually introduced, it was designed actually when Prince Charles brought his yacht, the Britannia, over to the Atlantic coast of Brazil, and he got a number of his friends there, people like Al Gore and the business and financial leaders of the world, and they hammered out a program that was was to be carried out at the Second Earth Summit at Rio de Janeiro in 1992. And these ideas of sustainable development and of course, many of these ideas were carried over from the Club of Rome, which had been writing about that, and starting back in 1971, with their book, they published The Limits of Growth, and they had the first Earth Summit in 1972, and the Second Earth Summit in 1992, and the Third Earth Summit in 2002. And of course, you're not hearing about this unless you're one of the insiders. But Prince Charles and certainly some of the royalty of Europe are intimately involved in this, as are some of the most powerful men in the world, and of course our presidents go right along with it. Well, if you're out there in the listening audience, you have a question for Rosa, why, give us a call, because she certainly has an excellent understanding of what's going on. And Rosa, before we go on, before we get to Ruby, who's calling us from Live Oak, well, I'd like you to go ahead, get your website out one more time, and maybe you could tell us what communitarianism, because you mentioned that, and I don't think the average person has any idea what communitarianism is.
Great. It's my pleasure. And I will give you my website. First, I'm going to tell you, though, that I am a left-identified person. So just in case you think that maybe only people who know about this might be, more focused on the other end of the spectrum, I've been a Democrat my entire registered voting life. I'm a feminist, pro-choice, I'm a lesbian, and I'm anti-war. So there's hope for the progressives, because if you open your eyes and you take a look around, you're going to see it. And I can help you with that. Take a look at my websites. One of them is www.santarosaneighborhoodcoalition.com. And that's the boots on the ground group that's going to show you how you can do this in your own community. And the other one is the international website, and that is www.democratsagendaagenda21.com.
Well, Rosa, basically this is an issue that has nothing to do with partisan politics. It has to do with an idea of saving America and the values that we hold to be true.
That's right.
And we have to certainly, you have to work with us, and we have to work with you, because we need people who are aware, and you are sort of one of the most articulate people I could say that I've come across, who really can express this so well, and I really appreciate your willingness to come on with us. Now,
well, that's great, and I do want to say that since you asked me about communitarianism, I think it's very important that people know that there is a name for all of this. There's a name for this point of view, and it is communitarianism, and it's an actual thing. It's it's not like I just made this term up. It's out there. You can look at the internet and find it everywhere. It's a philosophy that says that the individual's rights need to be subsumed or balanced or made subordinate to the rights of the community. Now, you ask yourself, what are the rights of the community? We are Americans. Our Bill of Rights and our Constitution guarantee us rights, unalienable rights as Americans, as human beings. And the rights of the community are not delineated. But communitarians say that the society at large, the entire global society, has rights that are superior to and more important than any individual rights. And it makes sense when you think about communitarianism, because the United Nations, most of those nations are not democratic nations. Their concerns for individual rights are not the same as ours as Americans. And so we must fight communitarianism, and we have to open our eyes. We can do it. We can resist social engineering.
And that's what it's really all about. It's about a group of people who want to control you because they feel that they know what's best.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to Ruby, who's calling from Live Oak. Again, our number, 1-888-24-LIBERTY, 1-888-24-LIBERTY, or 464-8295. Hi, Ruby. How are you doing? Do you have a question for our guest?
Website's out again.
Oh, you want the website again? Go ahead.
No, I got them. I wrote them down. I was going to call and ask you to get them out again. I just wanted to comment that this community that she was describing, it sounds like something right out of Soylent Green.
Well, I'll tell you what, it sounds very much like downtown Laurel Street there in Santa Cruz, or basically back there by the railway tracks where they have the multi-story buildings. And basically, they want to buy this railway, which is a money-losing proposition. They spent $250,000 to figure out how they would make it payable, and they decided they were going to haul freight a distance of 7 miles. And by hauling freight 7 miles, they were going to maybe be able to make enough money to pay for this, and they actually presented this to the Board of Supervisors and the people with a straight face. Of course, why, we're going to haul freight, capitalism, and we're going to make enough money to pay for this rail line, but this is already about alternative means of communication, of transportation.
Mm-hmm.
Very carefully designed, but since the local radio station, certainly I shouldn't say the local radio station, the local newspaper goes along with it. Fortunately, the major radio station here, KSCO, is doing a good job of getting the truth out. There's a growing awareness, and when this whole thing falls flat and we go into receivership, maybe there'll be some sanity returned to our community. But do you have a question for our guest?
This is really bizarre. I mean, I started noticing this stuff years and years ago, thinking, what in the world is going on here? Driving up and down the state several times, because I moved to Redding for a while, I started noticing these little shopping centers popping up all over the place in these little communities and things, and I just had this feeling I know I probably shouldn't say this on the air, with this Century 21 real estate thing. I got to thinking, is there something they're trying to push for the 21st century? And I had this weird feeling that maybe a lot of the money that's being used for this is money that's being laundered from the drug cartels.
No, I don't think so. It's coming, money's coming from the big oil. Big oil is financing a lot of this. They tie to what I call the Brotherhood of Darkness. A lot of it's coming from the tax-exempt foundations. Mm-hmm. Major corporations are behind this. They're all in on it. Because of course they all tie in together into the banking industry. Go right ahead there.
Well, Rosa. That's a great point, because, when you think about it, what does happen with these redevelopment areas is you have your small mom and pop businesses that are wiped off the map and replaced by corporate businesses. These are large chains. That's what comes in. In fact, if you're considered blighted, your area is considered blighted if it has too many local businesses. So what's happening is that money you are spending on your own property taxes goes for 30 years to pay off this bond debt. Redevelopment agencies are the only government agency that can float a bond without a vote. And you will be paying for that bond for the next 30 to 45 years. And that money is being taken away from your general fund. It's being taken away from your counties, from your schools. That's why your governor wants that money back, because it's being taken away from your schools. And instead it's being given to who? It's being given to corporate America, who wants that money to build a parking garage, as we saw here in Santa Rosa, a $30 million parking garage that they wanted from the redevelopment agency in order to attract a Nordstrom to their aging shopping mall. This is what you get when you get redevelopment, and this is what it is. It is Agenda 21 in a smart green cloak. Never trust anything called smart, because you don't support it. What are you, dumb? So these things are not smart. They are the way to undermine and destroy your community.
Amen to that. Very well said. Anything else, Ruby?
No, that is just something that's puzzled me for a long time, because I know that there's probably nobody in the world that's got more money than the drug companies.
Oh, they do, but certainly the pharmaceutical companies tie into this whole, what I call the Brotherhood of Darkness. And the pharmaceutical, the oil, the banking, they're all in on the scam, but they can't let the American people know.
It's all about control.
All about control, right?
Okay, thanks a whole lot.
God bless. Thanks very much, Ruby. And
Bye-bye.
again, our number is 1-888-24-LIBERTY, 1-888-24-LIBERTY, or 464-8295. And we have with us Rosa Corey, who certainly articulates what's going on so very well. How did you learn about this, Rosa? I mean, certainly, you have a tremendous depth of knowledge, much more so than most of the people who have come across and come to understand this. Did you do this by reading their websites, or did you go to some specific source to get the information? Because you have a tremendous grasp and understanding.
Well, this is what I do for a living. I'm a researcher. I'm a forensic appraiser, and I testify. I have to know everything about property and land use plans when I'm doing evaluation, because I might have to explain it to a jury or be able to defend it in a court situation. So what I'm doing is getting all the information that I can possibly get. This is what I do for a living, is find everything out that I can about whatever it is I'm working on. And as soon as I got into the redevelopment thing, I knew there was a planning revolution, but redevelopment, hey, it's funny. I thought I was going to get elected to that board and be working with the city to tell the citizens all about eminent domain. I thought I was going to be on the side of the city. I had no idea I was going to end up fighting the city tooth and nail and suing them and raising $500,000 and spending years of my life fighting this out. But you know what? There's nothing more important than this. This is our liberty, and our private property rights are the foundation of our freedom in this country. And this is how I know about it, because I'm into private property.
And I think that's so well said. And people have to understand that without the right of private property, there is no freedom. The whole idea of America was built upon life, liberty, and property. And if you read the Constitution, you will find that phrase is used on 2 occasions in the Constitution. And basically the idea came from John Locke, who was writing in the 1600s about these ideas that man had a right to be free to life, liberty, and property. In fact, that was to be actually in the Declaration of Independence. When Thomas Jefferson wrote the original version, it was life, liberty, and property. But, there was a committee, and the committee always has to do something. They changed property to pursuit of happiness. However, when they wrote the Constitution, they went back to the original Lacanian view, life, liberty, and property. And the whole idea of Agenda 21 is to take away our property rights, to take away our freedom, because there are wise people out there who know far better what's best for us common people. And what they really want to do is, as Rosa said so well, they want to lower our living standards. Now, actually, if you evaluate things, living standards are going down. And certainly this next year or so, as the prices go up, as our wages stay the same, you're not going to be able to have the purchasing power that you've had in the past. You're not going to be able to get gasoline is going up to $5, probably $6 or $7 a gallon. You're going to be restricted in what you can do with your car. And if you get yourself an electric car, you may find the price of electricity is going up, because basically, of course, they're going to have to put in all sorts of grids to get the electricity from the wind farms and from the solar farms to the regular grid. They're talking about, tens of billions of dollars, and who's going to put it up? Why, you are, of course. And then, of course, the wind power and solar power costs about 2 to 3 times what of course, energy produced by coal or natural gas plants do. Only a fraction, of course, what the price of hydroelectric power is, but then we're tearing out the dams, and what nuclear power is, but then we're not allowed to have nuclear power. So when you understand they're intensely raising the price of electricity so that we will not use it, so we can drive energy-dependent, factories out of this country, and then, of course, get the American people to use less electricity. And as Rosa said, if we were living in huts, they still wouldn't be happy.
It's true. This is a whole life plan. And it involves the educational system, the energy market, the transportation system, the governmental system, the healthcare system, food production, and the whole idea is about restricting your choices and narrowing your freedoms. And, talk about not being able to use your vehicle or, turn on your lights. The roads in Sonoma County are not going to be paved anymore. They're talking about only paving 150 of the 1,300 miles of roads in Sonoma County, and only 150 miles will be paved. That means those people out in those rural areas will not be able to get to their properties. And what is this about? It's about moving people off of those lands into the cities, into those high-density buildings where you don't need much money, do you? You have lost your ability to earn because there are no factories. We don't produce anything. We can't do anything here anymore. And then you're going to be moved into a tiny condo where there's a condo homeowners association that's going to watch your every move. And when you walk out your door, you're going to get onto that train and only go where that train goes. And I'll tell you who else has redevelopment. China has redevelopment, and if you don't like it, they come and kidnap you and take you out of your property and demo your house when you're not home. But here in this country, we have eminent domain, so we have to pay you. But we take you out of your property, too, for redevelopment, and that is not for a public use like a road. That's for another private developer to take your property and build something on it that might make your community a little bit more money. This is communitarianism, the idea that the individual does not matter, that it's only the community, the global community, that matters.
And after the Kelso decision, they actually tried to get a state initiative through to say that the redevelopment couldn't come and take your property, and the people didn't have any grasp of what this was, and they voted it down. Somebody put out an awful lot of time and effort to try to protect our property rights. But of course, there are very, very powerful forces on the other side who do not believe in the right of private property. They really feel that everything belongs to the state and we must be controlled from the cradle to the grave. And that's very reminiscent of what we would see in China or in Russia or in Cuba today. Little wonder, of course, that David Rockefeller's daughter keeps going down to visit Fidel Castro, at least according to David in his book Memoirs, available from Reader Liberty. I wonder what David Rockefeller's daughter and Fidel Castro talk about on their frequent meetings. Our telephone number? Well, our guest is Rosa Corey. We'll be right back. Rosa, you've got 3 minutes to wrap up our program for us.
Wow. Well, gee, I'd like to have about 3 million minutes. This is such a huge issue.
Well,
and
we will have you on. We basically do 3 audiences. We will have you on all of our programs. So don't you worry. We'll have you if you're willing to come back. With a right-wing extremist, why we'll be glad to have you back here as a guest on our program because you really have such a tremendous grasp of this. I'm very, very impressed.
Well, thank you. And what I want to say is that this information is available for people, and what we'd like you to see, what all of us, what you and what I want and what all of us want, is for people to become the 100th monkey. The 100th monkey is the little story where there's monkeys all over an island, and one little monkey figures out a way to open up a coconut, and finally, little monkeys learn it, but nobody seems to get it, and then the 99th monkey gets it, and when the 100th monkey gets it, every monkey on the island knows it, and everybody, even if they haven't learned it, suddenly knows how to do it, and that's what we need to be together. This information is out here. We can resist it. We're Americans. We have a strong government. We have a strong sense of ourselves as individuals. We're not asleep. We're awake, and we can take this back, but we need to do it together, and we need to educate ourselves.
Rosa, are you having pretty good results up there in the Santa Rosa area, getting people involved and getting them informed and getting them concerned?
Well, we've had some incredible successes up here. We have just blown the doors off this town, and this town is run like a little, I hate to say it, it's run like a little Chicago up here. It's pretty intense. I've reported politicians to the FPPC. We've stopped Agenda 21 plans up here. We have people that are beginning to recognize what's happening, who are willing to get out and flyer. We do a lot of flyering. We do on-the-ground information for people so that they can find out what's going on. And people are being conditioned against their will. They're being conditioned to look for suspicious activity, for violators, people who are smoking in their apartments, things like that. Don't be a snitch.
All of our other networks, I think your message is vitally